Sabbath is simply a period of time where you stop working so that you can rest. It seems simple enough, right? Just stop working. Shabbat in Hebrew, Sabbath in Hebrew, means to cease, to stop. It's literally one of the Ten Commandments. It's like one of the Ten Commandments. It's like it got in there. Like all the stuff that you're not to do, like murder and then rest. Like, well, how did that one get in there? It's the only commandment we actually brag about breaking. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. It's the only one that we actually brag about breaking. We're told two things about Sabbath in the Ten Commandments. Remember the Sabbath and keep the Sabbath holy. Remember to keep it holy. It's interesting that most of the other commandments starts with thou shalt or thou shalt not. But Sabbath, we're simply told to remember. We're told to remember as if we would easily forget. As if life and work would tend to easily get out of control where we put off resting for a thing once a year called vacation, and then do something super big and fun when we go on vacation, and it's not really rest, so we need a vacation from our vacation. It's almost like we would do that kind of thing, and therefore called to remember to rest. So built in the Ten Commandments, which the Ten Commandments, by the way, if you're like off-put by the Ten Commandments, it's basically the way God's free people were to live into their freedom. Remember, slaves in Egypt, being set apart, made a nation. Inside of these Ten Commandments is the good rule that God puts forth for his free people is to stop. We must remember to stop on Sabbath. My family and I, we practice Sabbath from Friday evening to Saturday evening. We stop work. We light 2 candles to remember the two commandments to rest in the Sabbath, one based on liberation and one based on the imitation of God. My wife does a Sabbath blessing in Hebrew and waves, and my daughter, who's 2, sits next to her and imitates her. Like she closes her eyes, and my daughter closes her eyes and looks at me like I'm supposed to close my eyes. I'm like, no, that's your guys' thing to do. And we eat and we talk and we reflect and we play, and I lay on the floor and read books, and I have nowhere to go. My daughter loves it. She climbs all over me. She pulls my pinky and takes me all over the house, and she knows Daddy's not going to go downstairs to work today. This is the day of rest. We have to stop. We don't stop because our work is done. It's never done. I mean, if we stop when our work is finished, when we get to the future, that's when we'll stop. When we get into the future, we will never stop. Some of you know this. You haven't stopped since grad school. Adults know that work is never done. With every accomplishment, there arises a new responsibility. Every swept floor invites another sweeping. But what Sabbath does is it helps us to resist the artificial urgency of our days. It helps us to, once a week, look at the ways the theology of progress drives us from all directions and stop and say, I resist. I resist this theology of progress. I resist that tomorrow is going to be better than today. I lean into Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount that says, don't worry about tomorrow. Live into today. Now, this is a very stupid example, but I'll do it anyway. One of my favorite hobbies is golfing. I say this every time I'm up here as the unashamed plug to someone invite me to golf in Portland. So basically, there it is again. Anyway, so I'm kind of a little bit of a perfectionist, so I've been playing golf for a long time, and I want the perfect golf club setup. Like I want the perfect clubs, and I want them to look like this and match like this and feel like this and all this stuff. So I had knee surgery a few months ago, and I'm just barely getting back to where I'm able to play golf. And I played golf this last Friday, 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't hitting these certain clubs well. And so I was like, I need new clubs now. I need the ones that will help me now with my post-knee surgery clubs, that sort of thing. And so I found myself on Sabbath, on Saturday, sneaking downstairs, grabbing my iPad mini and looking at blogs of clubs. And I felt this urgency in my chest going, I just want them now. I want them to come right now. I want to buy these ones, and I want them to ship right now, and I want to get them by 3 p.m. today. I want this now. I want perfect now. And I came to my senses. I was like, sometimes you just get crazy, and you come to your senses, and I finally, after a couple hours of sneaking down, Ashley was going, what are you doing? I came to my senses, and I'm like, I'll never perfect this game. What is driving me? What's going on in my soul right now? That I want this now. I want to be in the future. I want to leave the present. I want to be in the future, and my mind can't rest. I had to snap out of it, and I had to remember it'll never be perfect. Life will never be perfect. I have to stop right now. Now, what happens when we do? What happens when we actually remember the Sabbath? We'd say, well, I'm going to set aside a period of time and I'm going to rest. What happens? Sabbath restores us. This is what Sabbath is supposed to do. This is the point that Jesus was bringing on the Sabbath in Mark chapter 2 when he said the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people and not people to meet the requirements of Sabbath. This is why Jesus healed and fed on the Sabbath. It's supposed to be restorative. But here's the problem. We too often have our own idea of how we want to be restored. We seek restoration through the Food Network, through recreational sports, through shopping, through yoga. So when I say take a day a week and Sabbath, and the Lord of the Sabbath will restore you, you automatically think spa day or me day or honey, I'm going golfing, Shabbat Shalom sort of thing. Like, I'm going to do my thing. Now, in the context of the 10 Commandments in Deuteronomy, which were given to the generation that wasn't in Egypt but was about to go into the Promised Land, and so the 10 Commandments and the laws were restated for them, re-given for this generation. There's a subtle difference between the 10 Commandments, the commandment to rest in Exodus and the commandment to rest in Deuteronomy. Now, you probably know this and you probably could recite this, but simply said, in Exodus 20, it's rooted in God's rest, right? It's on the screen. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy, 6 days you shall labor. Why? Because the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all is in them, and on the seventh day he rested. So what the first commandment is about is be like God. Imitate God. God worked and he rested. You must be like God. As you move into the Promised Land, be like God. But then in Deuteronomy, it's something different. Same thing, observe the Sabbath day, keep it holy. But then it says this. Why? Because you were slaves in Egypt and God delivered you. This is different here. This is remember the Sabbath day to remember liberation. Not just imitation, but liberation. You're free. Now, the difference is the callback to slavery, that you're no longer slaves, is this. This is the point. The Sabbath is supposed to restore us back to our true identity. That's the point of Sabbath. You are not a slave, you're free. Free people rest. Free people are not driven by taskmasters. Now, we don't tend to have external pharaohs anymore. Tyrants that keep us at work long hours and making us go 7 days a week. There's laws against these sort of things, right? We don't have external pharaohs anymore, but we do have internal pharaohs. We have that little voice in our head that says if we don't wake up and hustle, if we don't do something, make something, perform, kill it today, then we're nothing and we're nobody. We have these internal pharaohs that drive us every day. So we wake up on Sabbath, we're like, research that thing, go do that thing, make sure you work on your body, make sure you're doing this, read this, say that, whatever it is, post this. And if you're crushing your Sabbath, all you want to do is like post it on Instagram, like crushing my Sabbath today, Sabbath selfie, that sort of thing. Like this is like this internal pharaoh that makes you want to keep going. That internal pharaoh that says when you stop making, you will be worthless and you'll feel worthless. Pharaoh now lives inside of us. It lives on our phones. It lives on our computers. It lives on our TV. It lives on our feeds. We are driven by this inner voice, not a true vocation from our voice. This is like a bastard vocation. This is like, in Eugene Peterson's language, a bastard vocation that says if we don't keep hustling, we're nothing. This is the day where we're saved from the internal pharaoh. That bastard vocation, where we take up our true vocation as God's kids, God's free people. So when you Sabbath, stop, but not just stop, step back. It's very important to practice Sabbath well, to step back and look at the work you did the last 6 days. Stepping back is where you see how far you've come. You look at the work of your hands from this past week and how God was weaving through you glory, kavana, reweaving glory. You look back and you're like, what has God done? My wife and I, every Sabbath, we take a Sabbath walk where we practice gratitude. we go through our previous week and discuss all the things that we're grateful for. And every single week, without fail, we stop and go, whoa, there was a lot going on this last week. Remind ourselves that we're God's kids in God's kingdom. And in our work, he's reweaving glory through us as my wife raises our daughter from home. As I work in the church, as we have these conversations with neighbors, as we're connecting with friends, God's reweaving through us. This helps shape our imagination. With this practice, we're able to engage the work week coming up with more intentionality. Sabbath restores us because it allows our souls to catch up to our body. I have two friends from our church and my congregation who battle mental illness, who told me recently that they have loved COVID for one reason. It has allowed the world to slow down to the pace of their lives, and it allowed them to get healthy. This is not surprising. The world moves way too fast. Sabbath is a day we rest and allow the world to rest, to be restored and slow down and let everyone catch up. We are to remember to Sabbath. The Sabbath restores us, but lastly, the Sabbath actually reforms us as well. My point here is this, that Sabbath won't always be easy. I want to make sure that I leave that here in this room. To be reformed from being malformed is never easy. Especially if you're just beginning to practice the Sabbath, I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture for you. Yes, I eat pancakes smothered in peanut butter and syrup on Sabbath. Yes, that's true. But it's not always that good. Sabbath is hard. Sabbath, taking a day to rest and worship and delight in God, will more often than not feel like detoxing from a drug. Your skin will crawl, especially at the beginning, and your mind will fixate on things like your phone and Amazon and what email you forgot to send. That's how you know it's working. This is how the internal Pharaoh gets drowned in the sea. This is where you start to die a little bit. The Spanish mystic John of the Cross says that in our spiritual journey and our spiritual practices, to be suspicious if the cross of Christ does not begin to find us. Be suspicious when the cross of Christ doesn't begin to show up and find you. This thought works really well when we think about the Sabbath. On Sabbath, the cross of Christ will come and find you. It will help you face your own death, your own letting go. Don't be alarmed if on your Sabbath the cross of Christ begins to come find you. When I first began to Sabbath, almost 10 years ago now, on Saturdays, I would Sabbath on Saturdays. My day off was Monday. I worked at the church. We're just starting Rally San Francisco, which means I was working on the sermon late into Friday. So I'd work all day Friday, and then I would try to rest on Saturday, Sabbath. Now, the problem was I had sermon brain all day Friday night and into Friday morning, so I was so tempted to wake up Saturday morning and work on my sermon, to get my sermon that much better, because on Sunday I had to perform for my life. I had to show up and do good so people would love Jesus and know his word and say thank you to me for bringing them close to Jesus. This is how I thought. I have to wake up and work, because if I don't work, people won't know Jesus tomorrow. But I had to start Sabbathing. And it was a day I had to practice that story was not true. I wasn't holding the world together, or my own church together, or the sermon together. God was at work. And if I was going to show up Sunday morning in the right headspace, I had to do it from rest, not for rest. So the cross of Christ came and found me on Sabbath a lot. At the beginning, I felt depressed. Why was I depressed? Well, because I had to come face to face with my own limits, my own things I had to bury, let go of the illusion of control, to die to some things. After years of this practice, I don't remember the last time I thought about a sermon on Sabbath, but that was not the case at the beginning. We Sabbath because not only does it restore us, but it reforms us. The cross of Christ comes and finds us.